I first started writing this presentation on a train journey up to Manchester a few weeks ago, and I ended up chatting to somebody opposite me. This person was Robin. They're a graphic designer, and they were asking me about the railway. They were asking about, like, how does it work? And after we talked about how great the track discipline is, far better than E&P, S&T, I've got a multidisciplinary team now, so this is recorded. I'm sure they'll watch it. Myself and Robin ended up chatting about how people can join Network Rail and the training that's offered. The conversation ended up focusing on people and the types of decisions that people in rail are having to make and how it's so important to everything we do. So we've already heard about technology, and technology is changing. And we're going to hear more about that in the remaining presentations this morning and after lunch. But at the moment, people are making our key decisions. They're going to still be doing our physical work for a long time yet. So back to Robin. Yep, people are vital to our safe and performing railway for making it simpler, better and greener. It's about investing time in people and giving energy to them to give them the right knowledge and skills. You know, prime example there of Paul, developing the new tricks. That's, you have to stand a video next to you if you're talking to catch the ball. Okay, so it's a privilege to talk at this year's conference, and thanks to Rich for the invite. Last year, I spoke about the new STO course. Well, I should have put this on. Spoke about the new STO course, and Alex is in the audience as well today, talked about the ATME programme that was up and running. This year, we've got a few updates about how apprenticeships are changing, how you can help with apprenticeships, and some more detail about the success of our role-based training programmes. But as I talk through this, just remember, this is all about you and your people and trying to get as much out of them as we can. But first, apprenticeships. Okay, going to give an update on apprenticeships, looking at what's called the tripartite meeting process and the work that's going on to develop new apprenticeship pathways within the track discipline. Why I think it's important, everyone here, you're all key decision makers in how well we support our apprenticeships and how well we support our apprentices. And if we are bringing in new apprenticeships, how well we can actually embed those schemes into delivery units. But the tripartite meeting, I had to practice saying this so many times yesterday. It's a horrible word. But the tripartite meeting is a common feature across all apprenticeships. It's not just Network Rail. And it's about bringing together the employee, who's in this case, is our apprentice, the employer, and the training provider. Just a quick show of hands for if anyone's involved in those meetings. That might be as the employer, it might be as an apprentice for those who are doing level 4, level 5, level 6 apprenticeships, or the employee rep. Go on, get your hands. I do them. I'm an employee rep. That's great. Okay, so giving your time, again, it's all about those people. So for our technician apprenticeships, these meetings are the apprentice, the apprenticeship coach, and somebody from the DU like yourselves. And having all three people there gets more out of the apprenticeship and gets what we want out of the apprenticeship, whether that's we as the individual or we as the employer. Last time I got the stats, only 66% of the tripartite meetings had all three people involved. And the purpose of the meeting is to get three people involved. Okay, so just for those that can influence that, please do. It's about getting your feedback directly to the apprentice and directly into the apprenticeship scheme. The apprenticeship coach there will let you know what the next block of training is approaching for the apprentice. And then between the three of you, then it's working about how can you make sure the apprentice is going to get the right learning before and after that next block. Again, it's about preparing that person ready for their future career. But the key bit of the tripartite meeting, yes, it's about the conversation, it's about the discussion, but it's about recording the actions, and it's about making it clear to the three people involved what needs to happen ready for the next meeting. Okay, so if you're the employer, please do make sure what you need is recorded and those targets are set between the coach and the apprentice. And if you're not sure of anything, just get the coach to explain things to you. Okay, so getting these right does mean we get better outcomes for apprentices, and we're going to get better people into our DUs. It also means the apprentices are properly prepared for their first roles. The evidence of all the tripartite meetings across all apprenticeships, it's all about the more open they are, the more collaborative they are, we get better outcomes. The more closed they are, we don't get as good outcomes. Okay, so those open conversations, being honest, giving that feedback, being the terrier, that's what's important during that time. Okay, but overall, the apprenticeship scheme and those meetings, it's all about keeping the apprentice themselves safe. It's about getting value for money, and it's about helping the industry new starters have a brightest future as possible. So please do help. What else is going on in apprenticeships? There's some amazing work going on, and Network Rail is part of a working group in investigating new apprenticeship pathways. So the group's made with former apprentices, industry partners, training providers, and it's all managed under a government body called the National Skills Academy for Rail. And from our perspective, what we're seeing there's an appetite there for new apprenticeship pathways in rail testing, welding, and technical office. Okay, but why are we doing this? It's all about, mention about the new starters. It's about making sure we've got the right entry schemes for new starters into their first job, but also making entry into the rail industry simpler. Okay, if we can make it simpler, we're going to get people into the first role quicker. Okay, as we change apprenticeships, things are going to change, but it is based on, all apprenticeships are based on giving the discipline grounding knowledge, and then the learner journey is tailored through the rest of their journey. So, for example, the technical office one, we're looking at, that's much more going to focus on to the surveying, design, and making more use of OTMs, where the rail testing and welding pathways, that's much more about the processes and techniques that in those niche jobs. Okay, so think about potential welder. They'll now get an appreciation for numerous welding processes, and then through that tripartite activity, be able to direct them to get the on-the-job experience in the processes and techniques relevant to your patch. Okay, and that means when they come to their apprenticeship, they're job ready into that welding role straight away. Okay, not only this would mean a reduction in training that doesn't add value. Okay, it's going to make the apprenticeship journey quicker. It's going to make the apprenticeship journey cheaper, but it also means we've got that pipeline of skilled people coming through. We'll be able to use that for succession planning, and for those who've got, the support of Jake. You can start to build more dedicated welding teams within your own control. Okay, it's about building that pool of skilled workforce that's a bit lacking at the moment. Don't ask me too many detailed questions. Grab me in the break. I'll happily chat through it all. Okay, a bit about training design. Okay, in training design, it's sort of part of the training organisation. Going to give you a quick update on the new rail grinding course that's coming out, and also things that are changing in the world of NDT training. But first, manual rail grinding, you can groan, you can cheer, however you take it. But the TR80 was originally brought in as a temporary interim measure for about 12 months. I don't know how many years we are, but we've still got TR80, which try to transition into TR25. But TR25 is ready for the final sign-off. The 10-day training course has been successfully piloted. And what we've done with this sort of trying to get the grinding up and running is we brought that course in as the intellectual property of Network Rail. So Network Rail is going to own that course, and then it's effectively licensed out to our supply chain to deliver on our behalf. The benefit of that means it's easier for training providers to come in to say, we'd like to deliver that. They don't have to develop their own stuff. They don't have to go through a whole load of hurdles to create that. They can pick up the course. They can demonstrate to the technical authority and training they've got the resources and the capability, and then we can sign them off to deliver. Okay. From that, we're already seeing there's an additional training supplier wants to come on board, which straight away is going to double our ability to train people. What have we got here? I love the note I make to myself. It's a bit like the P2F curve that Paul showed. It's about if we're doing those, the proactive grinding strategy, what does it bring us? It brings us improved asset life. We're going to get more life out of our asset. It's a better performing asset, and overall, it does reduce maintenance costs. And there's massive evidence there that if we can get that proactive strategy going, the operational expenditure reduces, and we can spend more money elsewhere to get a better performing asset. But what's the course cover? It does cover plain line, it does cover S&C, and thanks to support from Will Green, Will's been instrumental in making sure we've got the right technical content there that's going to deliver what we need. Delegates will be taken through various grinding skills, but also they're going to be coaching their teamwork. So it's not just about the individual in the activity. The grinding is a team, so it's about looking at team dynamics. How do you work in the different roles within the team to make sure the team as a whole is successful? And as I mentioned, the technical authority have been instrumental in supporting us there. So we've gone through the process with them about approving locations and the type of assets that the training can be based on. And that means we will be getting into sidings, we'll be getting into heritage railway as part of those training activities. But the direction for the training providers is it's not all about doing the same task on the same defect. It's all about doing a variety of tasks on a variety of defects to build that background of experience and skill. So for those who've already done the TR80 course, there's a 5-day course that's going to be that's also being rolled out. At the end of that 5-day, that then leads to the transition into TR85, and that's all about helping streamline that transition to make it a simpler little journey. I've mentioned this a couple of times, and I mentioned to a few people chatting over coffee. As with all training, it does get managed through your own route training support manager. Some people have a more active relationship with their support managers than others, but those individuals are the ones that will capture demand. They'll put the demand into the system, and then the Network Rail planning team then works about trying to take those individuals and get them booked onto the necessary courses. And a very brief look at NDT training. So there's a project being led and funded by a technical authority. It's about getting the NDT training reviewed but brought back into Network Rail intellectual property, a bit like the grinding course. And as we're doing that, we're creating the new materials and the new courses, giving the uplift and bringing all the content back up to date. What that, again, a bit like the grinding, what does it mean? It means it's easier for training providers to come on board. And we've already seen one new training provider wants to come in, and that again increases our capacity, so we haven't got that backlog, and we can get more people the relevant training they need earlier in their roles. Again, different green, Sam Green, Sam's been sort of key to this, and has always provided that font of knowledge that is much needed as we're doing things. But delivery update, so training delivery, it's a huge commitment from you and your teams. There's a huge budget there, and it's a huge commitment from time as well, releasing people for training, recertification, and all the other work that goes on. So what I'm going to give a quick insight into some of the skills training, some of the numbers, and then talk about some of the role programs and an insight into some of the projects that some of the delegates have completed on those programs. But skills training, here we go. There's some magic numbers. You can't do a presentation without some magic numbers from Power BI. Right, so in 2024, Network Rail training went through a second phase of reorganisation. There's one in 2023, then another one in 2024, and that's sort of upset, changed things, moved things around. The latest reorg now, that's brought in the skills of trainers has been readdressed, the balance of trainers between disciplines has been recalibrated, and there's a lot of recruitment activity going on to bring the skills back up to where they were a few years ago. But in the last financial year, for track NDT in the welding sort of discipline, there was 26,000 days dedicated training delivered. Already for this financial year, with your support and with your team support, there's 21,000 dedicate days already identified, with 64% of those already planned or people have already been trained. And to help that, the booking cycle from training has been extended to 20 weeks. It's trying to break into that second roster cycle. That's seen as a positive move, but also more training than ever is being delivered locally, especially through the use of sandpits. It's all about trying to get training delivered as locally as possible to make that release of people much, much easier. But how can you help? A bit like the apprenticeship one, what's your key influence here? We're still seeing large numbers of what's called booked no-shows. So booked no-show is an individual who's been booked on a course, hasn't cancelled, but then doesn't turn up on the day. I won't give the numbers because it's probably a little bit sensitive, but do ask me in the break. But what's the issue with that is it takes quite a significant chunk of your own training budgets to not have someone on training, but then that person still needs training. So there's a double hit on your training budget, but also it takes that training space away from somebody who would have been booked on it later on. Okay, so for training, it's fantastic, you pay us twice, but what it does mean is we haven't got the capacity we need to against your annual business plans. So if you want to save some money to have a party or do some more effective maintenance, if you can just have a little think about what's your contribution to those book no-shows, there's an opportunity there to really add more value or get more out training or get that money bought to buy some remote monitoring through Rich. But here we are. This is, the start of what I really want to talk to you about is, so last year I talked about the introduction to the STO course. So that's now been up and running, and that's co-delivered with support from the PWI. So the first cohort of around 18 people finished last year. Cohort 2 is approaching their last PWI module before they come back into a Network Rail module. And then Cohort 3 started at Basingstoke earlier this month. So that is a success story to work for collaboration between PWI and Network Rail training is fantastic. Right. So there's loads of programs, get on them. And it's all about progression. It's about taking from one role to the next role. The program's changing complexity and decision-making as we go along. So magic dates. So yes, there are some dates. Already been asked, can I get on the ATME course? Can I get on this course? We've only got 2 places left for the ATME course planned, and we're probably looking down to about 3 places for the RME course. So if you have got people you'd like to get on them, work with your route training support manager to get people booked. But so as people are going through the programs, they're given a project. Particularly for the RME and ATME programs, they, after their first event, work on a project and they'll take that through for the next 9 or 12 months. And here's just a few of the project titles. And I joined an RME crowd last week, and 2 of them were already implementing and pushing ahead with their better use for electric friction modifiers. And between them, they were forecasting to save over £100,000 every year in equipment and consumables. So yes, there's a cost saving, but that cost saving doesn't bring into about the performance benefit. It didn't bring into the sustainability benefit of not putting grease into the ecosystem, and it doesn't take into account the benefit of the line-side neighbours of seeing reduced noise issues. So there we go. But again, how can you help the potential, helping current delegates and potential delegates, having your own little mini tripartite meeting with them before they go an event, when they come back. As the employer, what can you get out of them? What projects can you set them? How can you get them to work with a group of like-minded people, so another 10 or 11 people, to try and solve your problems? Because that's what the cohorts are doing really well. They work together to solve each other's problems. I've been given a nod from Rich. So this is my and finally slide. This is the list of 80 people that have engaged with the track professional programs over the last 12 months. I've seen a few in the audience. I won't ask you to stand up or put your hands up, but your dedication and commitment is fantastic, and everyone listed there should be really proud of your achievements. And it's quite nice showing this slide before the next session where the PDOI will recognise those that have gone through for professional registration or other learning. It'd be great to see another 80 names up next year, different names. What I'd also like to see is some of these names coming back to support other events. And we've committed to an RME knowledge share in January next year, where we're going to invite all of the current and former RME delegates to get back together to talk about how their project's gone, how they deliver the benefits, and how, as a community, how can they share with pride. But just to finish off then, all of this, what I've talked about there, isn't possible without support from the technical authority, and I mentioned a couple of names already, but particular strong steer from Reg Brown and his predecessor, Georgina Chalmers, as the technical capability managers for track. They are in the exhibitors area, buy the biscuits, can't miss them, okay? And they're there to talk about sort of the skills and track professional competencies. They are changing. Go and have a chat with them, find out more. What we're seeing progress in apprenticeships, seeing apprenticeships changing, and we're seeing Network Rail's adoption of apprenticeships improving year on year. And again, that needs your support to keep that going. We've got new training coming in, mentioned about the manual grinding and thinking differently about NDT training to get more capacity for Network Rail, but also as a rail industry. And with the 80 aims there I showed, our role-based engineering programs remain popular as ever. The Team E program is going through a rewrite, ready for release in November. And drawing all of these, delegates are challenged to put into practice their learning, but setting themselves projects to show actually how are they putting into practice what they've learnt. But what's my key message? My key message is technology is lovely, but at the moment it's people who are vital, and through training we can make you and your people much more effective. Thank you.